Welcome to the Toastmasters experience. My name is Evelyn. Get inspired by today's Toastmasters insights. Enjoy the show. Yes, and welcome to the Toastmasters experience. I'm very excited to have in my studio one of the newest members from Blue Mountains Toastmasters, which is located in the Blue Mountains, Katoomba, New South Wales, Australia. I'm very excited to have Jeni with me today. Welcome so much to the show, Jeni.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so good to have you. Now, you tell me a little bit. You've just recently joined, but you were a member before. So let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A very long time ago. It would be 40 years ago. And I was a member for a very short time for a very good reason. I've had, I suppose, two completely different careers. And back then I was working in the corporate sector and I was the only female senior manager in the company. And we'd have our board meetings and the men would be on their feet and sprouting away. And I didn't have the confidence to get my brain and my mouth moving together. And I heard about, you'd know, a thing in Toastmasters called Table Topics.
Yes.
And I thought, that'll do it. That'll teach me to think and speak at the same time. And that's exactly what I did. It was on the northern beaches in New South Wales back in those days. I joined until such time as I felt confident enough to be on my feet before the men and saying what I thought. So that's a long time ago, but I have fond memories, but I just didn't have the time back then.
And how long were you a member back then?
Oh, it must have been nearly a year.
Just a year. And so you've just recently joined.
Yes.
And what is your motivation for joining again?
I did remember that there were nice people. That was one of it, I think. But I don't go down to Sydney anymore at all. And I miss the theatre and I miss some things in Sydney, but I'm just not prepared to go down there. And I thought, apart from playing Scrabble and playing chess and whatever else I feel like doing, going to the pool, I had to have something that got me enthused and interested and just struck me. I wonder if Toastmasters might be a gap to fill. And that's why I joined, I suppose.
Oh, wow. And how do you find this new club that you're in?
I love it.
Oh, good.
They're mostly younger than me. There's a couple of old fogies like me. But the young people keep you on your toes. And I actually do primary ethics here in the Blue Mountains, which is, it's a particular course, I suppose, class. You have to get trained to do it. And there's children who, instead of going to what they call non-scripture, when the other children are doing scripture, they can opt to do ethics classes. And that was another reason that I wanted to join Toastmasters, because I don't think there's anything worse than boring kids. And so I really wanted to be on top of it and be able to speak clearly and precisely. Even though I don't write the courses, they're all written for you. You've got to present them.
Right.
You can't
right.
bore kids.
Right. That's so interesting. So you've done Toastmasters so that you can deliver this course to children.
In a way.
That's so interesting.
It's one of the reasons,
Yeah. Have you found that communication has changed over the years?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. When I was in the Toastmasters Club in the past, they had little books. And as I remember it, I don't think I got past the first book. But still, I had these little books, whereas now it's all online.
Yeah.
And although I had to learn PowerPoint and I had to learn a few other bits and pieces, I'm a Luddite. I love the world of the oral world, the written world, but not the electronic world. That's a big change.
Yeah, it is a big change. I must admit, I quite liked the manuals as well. There is something about the
Having
physicality.
paper.
I know, I know. But pathways, if you delve into it, there's so many opportunities to do other projects. I think that are quite interesting. I mean, one of the projects is actually doing a podcast, so it's something. You can actually stretch yourself a bit further, but I know exactly what you mean. I really did like the manuals, but I guess they're trying to go along with the 21st century and become more modernized. Yeah. I do find communication is quite different between the different generations. Have you found that, being just joining recently and being just a little bit older?
A little bit older. Thank you for that. Not really with the people once they're sort of past the teen years, but teenagers have a completely different language. But teenagers always have. Even back in the 50s when I was young, we talked with different words and different intonation because kids have to be different. And my grandsons use language that, of course, they're men now, but they use language that, to me, is not proper English.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. It definitely has changed. I think, the social media and the texting has changed the way we
Absolutely.
communicate as well. So you've just recently joined, and I know you've done a few projects. So I just want to talk about your first speech that you delivered. When you delivered your icebreaker. Yes. And so when you delivered your icebreaker, what did you actually want people to know about you?
Well, looking at a life that's been lived for a fairly long time, it was very hard to make a choice. So basically what I did was go from probably the last 30 years, because I completely changed my career. I ended up in hospital when I was early 50s, and it put me out of the workforce for a long time. I thought that was the life I thought was my life, was from that time on, because then I went back to the university, I did another couple of degrees, and I moved into a completely different area, which I loved. And so I wanted to talk about something I loved. So I sort of figured that'd do.
Oh, good. And have you chosen a pathway? Have you decided which pathway, or you're still trying to figure that out?
I'm horribly confused.
Okay.
I keep thinking, why can't I find what I'm supposed to find? And then I find it. I think, oh, that's interesting.
Okay.
So I saw presentation skills and I thought, well, that'll do. So that's where I've started. But I'm just not sure what it's all about. There seems to be all these different levels. I do have a mentor, which I think is a good idea.
Yes.
Very nice young man who tells it how it is, which I thought was good. I don't want somebody saying that was fine when that's not true.
Oh, that's great.
And this
That's
young
great.
guy really tells it how it is. So I thought, yeah, I'd like him for my mentor. So we've got a meeting, I think, soonish. And if I can take along a laptop and he can show me where I'm going wrong.
Yeah.
And then I can find what
Right.
would interest me the most.
Yeah. So you're doing presentation mastery. So when you go to a club meeting,
Is that what I'm doing?
Yes, that's what you're doing. The presentation one.
Okay.
No, that's great. That's great. So what is the most favorite part of your meeting when you go to a Toastmasters meeting?
I like a lot of it, actually. I do still like table topics because that was what got me there in the, all those years ago. But I do like listening to some of the speeches. There was one person who was talking about chasing storms, and I found that fascinating.
Yeah.
And then somebody else talked about AI, and that was interesting. What other things have been really fascinating? If there's one really good speech of the night, I go away happy.
Yeah. Yeah, and the table topics can be quite interesting
It's
too.
fun, yeah.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun because I have noticed you're really good at table topics.
Oh,
there's
thank you.
there's no filler words, and you just go straight into the answer, which I think is amazing. Is there any advice that you could give to anyone who is when you are delivering a table topic, what are your sort of,
My thoughts.
yeah.
Listen to what they've got to say and then decide if you can talk about that or you don't want to, and you can turn it on its head. And I feel permission to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
So if I don't like the topic, I can turn it over. And that's kind of fun, the turning over.
Yeah.
I think just get up, move out there and open your mouth. What's that old saying? Move your arms, open your mouth. I know I've heard a saying like that. Oh, yeah, let your armpits breathe.
Oh, okay.
Which is like movement. And then people can't see that you're nervous.
Okay.
Because I think you'd always be nervous.
Yeah, and I think it's important. No one can see your insides bubbling up, or people feel that, oh, people are going to know that I'm really nervous when I speak, but really you don't see that at all. Even if you're moving around nervously, I don't know. I just don't think we see that. I don't think the audience sees the nervousness that we actually feel.
Probably.
So, yeah, I do feel that.
But I do remember another adage, I suppose, from all those years ago. Keep the butterflies flying in formation.
Oh, I love it.
So you'll always have butterflies. So
Yeah.
I thought that was quite clever.
Yeah. I mean, I've also heard that it's good to have stage fright, because if you don't have stage fright, I don't know. I've heard that, and I don't know if that's true or not.
I believe Sir Laurence Olivier said that every time he went on stage, he had stage fright, and if he didn't, he'd believe he no longer cared.
There you go.
So there was the greatest actor probably that's ever lived.
Yeah, for sure.
Apart from Sidney Poitier. He's the best.
He's amazing. He is amazing. Let's just talk about when you joined 40 years ago. What sort of people were in Toastmasters? Are they different to like the different people that are in Toastmasters now? I mean, have you noticed anything?
Well, I don't know what's motivating the people that are there at Katoomba, but I do remember people had similar reasons to me. It was business, it was career. And I'm sure some people at Katoomba, that's the same. They're still climbing the corporate ladder, which was the case for me back then and for, I think, a lot of the others. But, certainly no longer for me. I retired at 75. And there's a few older people, but there's a few that seem to be, sort of climbing that corporate ladder. I haven't really got to know people well enough yet. I've only been there a couple of months.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I do think you're absolutely right, because the Sydney club seem to be more business people, and then up here in the Blue Mountains, which is a bit of a more creative space, there are more artists and just
True.
people who are retired, and so every club does have its own unique culture. So I think. And that is another thing. I think when people initially join Toastmasters, if it's not the culture that they want, there's so many other Toastmasters clubs that they can join.
Yeah.
So it's not just, so for anyone who's listening out there who has tried out Toastmasters and thought, oh no, I didn't like it at all, but maybe they weren't in the right club, because I do think that can also play a part in if you feel comfortable or.
I do remember something that doesn't happen here at Katoomba to the same extent. They had a very serious, I think is the word, business aspect. And you'd have to do things by Robert's rules? And have motions and all of that sort of stuff, which even back then I wasn't crazy about, but it was helpful. I'm glad that that's not as heavy a part of Katoomba.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right with the sort of the motions and the carrying ons and I know, I don't know what that's called either, but I know what you mean. So some clubs are really more by the book with those sorts of structures of the meeting, but I think a similarity with most clubs is that we all have an agenda.
Absolutely.
And I do love that, and I love the timing aspect of that as well, and in all the different roles and the self learning. I enjoy that as well. But anyway, so hey, I do you have anything else you'd like to say that you've really enjoyed about your new your new membership at Toastmasters?
I do enjoy it. I enjoy the people. And I enjoy the fact that I'm being forced not to become old.
Okay.
That you keep your mind going.
Yeah.
Having to write the presentation work, that keeps you thinking. And the next one I have to do, which I believe gives me the ending of my first level, which I didn't understand, I thought I'd finished it already, is research. And I'm going through all this, what will I research? What's interesting? What interests me?
Yeah.
And what is different that I don't already know? Because that would just be cheating to actually do psychology or one of the things that where I've come from. So I'm trying to think what would be a good area that I could learn on and learn something new. And two of the things I've actually thought about are my daughter's books, because I read her book on Victoria Street, the battle for Victoria Street, when they were going to pull down the whole of that area in Potts Point. And it really got me fascinated. Although I lived through those eras, I wasn't in Sydney at the time. I thought, oh, gee, that's interesting. I think I'd like to study that. And then she wrote a book about the Greek mythology turned on its... And I thought, gee, that's interesting. What other mythologies are out there that could be so interesting? The Egyptians, the Mayans. So they're things that are floating around in my head for the research, and I'll do something completely different.
Yeah, I do love that about Toastmasters, because you do speak about things you would never even think about, and it does stretch your brain. So we're coming up to the end of the podcast, and I just wanted to ask you, for anyone out there giving them advice to join Toastmasters, what can you say about that, or what can you recommend, or what advice?
Well, it's like everything. If you don't try it, you will never know. So at least give it a go. I'm not quite sure how many times you're allowed to come along as a non-member. Maybe once, twice. I'm not sure. I think I came twice.
Yeah.
So do that. And then if you fit, if it feels right, then you can become a member. Or if you don't like one club, go to another one. See what that's like. Because as I found, even with my short durations at both, they're different. And
Very
you may
different.
find something that, hey, this is right for me.
Yeah.
So, give it a go.
Yeah, that's right. Give it a go. Definitely. Thank you so much, Jeni, for being on today's show. And
It's fun.
Yes, I look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. Okay. Thank you so much for your company. Please tune in next time to the Toastmasters Experience.